Recording in progress.
Okay, you should all now have the recording button appearing in your top left. Yes, we are now recording. Let's get things started. Oh, more people joining. Welcome everybody to the LGBTIQA plus hustings. I think this is probably one of the last hustings we're hosting as a party for the leadership contest. I'm not sure there's many left after this, if any. We are going to be asking all the leadership candidates questions that have been suggested to us from people who follow us on social media, from members of the LGBTIQA plus committee, and from people who just participate with our events. I've had quite a lot of question suggestions. We've had 19 different questions submitted. Obviously, we don't have time for that. So we're going to be aiming to answer 6 questions. Somebody's requested live transcription. I will enable that. Thank you very much. We're going to be asking 6 questions. I've done my best in filtering the questions. I've eliminated any questions that I think have been asked before in other hustings. I've removed questions that are yes/no questions because I don't think they invite a very broad set of answers. And finally, I've aimed to ensure that we've got questions that every candidate can give a relevant answer to. So I've done my best to filter out any questions that seem to just focus on one candidate, because that's not the nature of hustings. Admit to all. So I've got lots of people joining. So the running order we're going to be going with is going to be Shahrar, then Amelia, then Ashley, then Martin, Tina, then Carla. This is just for opening statements, for which you'll have 5 minutes. I'll give you a little vocal cue when you've got 30 seconds left. But I will not give you a cue for 5 seconds unless you specifically ask me to, because I find that often breaks people's pace when they're trying to finish off a point. I would recommend to candidates it's quite useful to have a stopwatch or a phone app or something on standby to give yourself at least a reasonable cue. I'm just going to get my own one up now.
Sorry, Ash, did you say 30-second warning?
I'll give you a 30-second warning, that's right, yeah.
And what happens when we reach time?
I will politely ask you to finish whatever sentence you're saying. I won't just mute you. If you really are taking the mickey, then I might resort to muting people. But I have built a little bit of extra time into this. I've got it plotted to take about an hour and a half, and we've plotted 2 hours for it. So it's not the absolute end of the world if we overrun slightly. We've accounted for that. I think that's all we need to cover. So we're going to start with Shahrar. Shahrar, you've got 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ash. And sounds like I got an echo there.
Hang on.
Okay, I'll try again. Excellent. Thank you, Ash. I'm really looking forward to the next 90 minutes or so, and it's a real pleasure to be here. Let me give you a broad brush strokes about my election campaign, my key priorities. And for sure, I'm hoping that there'll be plenty of opportunity for us to explore within that some of the things that may be especially of concern or within party politics and beyond externally for you and your priorities. So as you can see in the slogan behind me, reality check, and what do I mean by that? Well, all the candidates are signalling their priority for the ecological and climate emergency. And I must say, rightly so. This is an unprecedented emergency. And what is it that I can bring as leader of the party that other very diligent, capable, sometimes extraordinary candidates can also bring? What is it that I can bring on top of that? Well, unfortunately, it starts with a diagnosis. I feel as though the party has not been bold enough in our messaging. And that debate about messaging often does play out on a perennial basis in the party around how firmly can we put our convictions about the emergency. And one way in which it plays out is you don't want to alarm the electorate. Now, I happen to think that's wrong. I think that's the wrong way around. And by reality check, I'm actually alluding just to that. We need to be objective we must tell the truth. The electorate, the broader public, the youth, for sure, many of whom aren't yet able to vote, are relying upon us to vocalize their concerns. We had a survey just a couple of days ago from the University of Bath, a very wide-ranging survey of young people across many countries, which confirmed and illustrated the depth of their anxiety and concern around the climate and ecological emergency. And as the Green Party, there is no other game in town. We have to be delivering on that. And as your primary spokesperson, I will. And here are a few examples of how I feel that we have been failing in that. So firstly, one has to distinguish between so-called alarmism and raising the alarm. Raising the alarm is what's required. There can be no pussyfooting around with respect to the scale of the political transformation that is required and is possible to do what's scientifically necessary. That's the reality check bit. Secondly, throughout last year, in fact, during the global pandemic, which resulted and required a lockdown, not just in this country, but globally, you will find, even in the United Kingdom, a 7% drop in carbon emissions. Now, that wasn't the purpose of the lockdown. The purpose of the lockdown was other, we know that. But why didn't the Green Party use as an opportunity? Apparently, we're not even allowed to use that word within the midst of a global pandemic, but I think we can, because it doesn't mean that we don't deeply despair of the deaths that have resulted. What it does mean is that we can be realistic about the fact that we've had to change and transform the way in which we live in society, from working from home, for those of us lucky enough to have jobs where we can do that, to also thinking hard about the importance of personal relationships in life. Some of us will have been forced to reflect on that. And what's really important in life: drinkable water, breathable air, a beautiful sunset. These are things which many of us will have reflected on. And the Green Party should also have been saying boldly, this is an opportunity with a 7% net reduction in carbon emissions for us to reset society. Instead, we're going back to business as usual with short-haul flights like there's no tomorrow. So that's the number one thing I think I can bring, if you were to elect me as leader, to our Green Party messaging. As your primary spokesperson,
30 seconds, Shahrar.
It's imperative for us to bring back the focus on every political topic of the day back to the climate emergency, and to remind people this is not just a 4-year political cycle. This is a political reality that we have to confront, not just for this generation, final sentence, but for future generations, to ensure that they do have a future which is inhabitable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shahrar. I think you were perfect down to the millisecond on that one. So I appreciate your commitment to timekeeping. I've turned the ability to unmute yourself off for the guests, so I'll ask you to unmute through Zoom. Amelia, we've got you up next. I've just clicked ask to unmute. You are now unmuted. Give me one moment. Okay, you've got 5 minutes starting now.
Thank you so much, and what a fantastic event. I want to begin by saying that there's one day in Parliament that I wish I'd been there in recent years, and that was the day that gay marriage was voted through by MPs. People who were there said that it was the one time that they heard cheers echo down the corridors of Parliament as people celebrated that they had made genuine change in people's lives as a result of political decisions that they made. These things, however, aren't possible without the people who are campaigning to make change happen, the shoulders of giants we essentially stand on in the LGBTIQA+ movement that have brought to that point the opportunity, the right for gay people to get married. Tamsin was there as part of that campaign. They were there organising people to ensure that they had a voice on future LGBTIQA+ rights. they've been working to with the groundbreaking campaigns that ensured they talked to Theresa May and, would you believe it, George Osborne, as they describe it. Yes, that was quite weird, but it meant that they were able to lift the party whip on that vote and secure rights for people that should have fundamentally have had them for generations, but as a result of prejudice in our society had been held back. Tamsin's work proves that we need to set a narrative to make change happen. But it's only by getting votes in Parliament or votes in your council that you get the long-term policy that means that change can happen. That's what me and Tamsin stand for. Here we are, we want to get more Greens elected because it's only through Greens getting elected that we will ensure that we put policies in place that support our generation and generations to come to tackle the climate emergency, to address inequality and ensure that we are tackling the ecological emergency too. We are standing for a clear Green New Deal as this point of where we are in this emergency. We are standing because the IPCC have said it's code red for humanity. We know that COP is just around the corner, and this is the chance for the Green Party to claim the narrative as the voice of the environment and ensure that we are speaking out at every opportunity. I agree that scientists should be talking about climate change. But if politicians aren't there, what we miss out on is the fact that it's inaction, political inaction, that has brought us to this point. This is why we are standing, and this is what we want to achieve. My background is in the environment. I have a MSc in environmental technology, a BSc in environmental biology, but also want to be working to tackle inequality as well. I've stood up as an ally on many occasions, and I've realized that on trans rights, it's not simply enough to be tweeting every now and then support for policy that ensures better equality. We talk about nothing about us without us. Well, nothing about you without you. But by working with Tamsin, I feel this is a point of genuine change to ensure that a trans person can speak for better policies. Yes, they can't represent every trans person, but they are a step towards ensuring that a voice is heard, a voice so often marginalized, so often oppressed, and ensure that we are making those changes that the Green Party should be at the forefront of. Tamsin's work on LGBTIQA rights has seen them fundraising for LGBT communities in Russia, setting up campaigns for Lush that were pioneering campaigns to support LGBTIQA communities, and one of the first campaigning in Japan as well. They've been working to fundraise support for All Out Brazil, which was a reaction to Bolsonaro's horrific and horrendous oppressions when he was first elected in Brazil. It shows that inequality and environmental destruction too often go hand in hand. And this is why our vision has been clear about what we can build and what we can create, which you will see through our COP manifesto, through our Liberation manifesto, through our first 100 days piece. We have proven ourselves in the press and media. We have been on nearly every news channel, setting the debate, making change happen. So join us, join our campaign for that big green vision, for that opportunity to make change happen, and that opportunity to ensure that the Green Party makes its mark on history at this crossroads of our party.
Thank you, Amelia. You did that with 3 seconds to spare by my stopwatch. Next up, we've got Ashley Gunstock. Ashley, I'm just going to invite you to unmute yourself now. You are now unmuted. And Ashley, you have 5 minutes starting now.
Okay, well, thank you. I probably won't get as close to 5 minutes as the other candidates who've previously spoken, because I want to keep it short and sweet. Yes, my name is Ashley Gunstock. I'm from Northern Forest and Redbridge Green Party, and formerly of Barnet Green Party as well. And I'm truly proud to say that I joined the Green Party 32 years ago, and I've been campaigning for it ever since because I passionately believe in the agenda. And of course, I always will. We've moved forward and kept ahead of the game in the ever-changing times that we've had along the way, with our view of the world and how best to address it. and the problems that we face. We've long been punching way, way, way above our weight. But now we are losing direction, and with it, precious time and the urgency to address an otherwise imminent global catastrophe. We've come to a fork in the road, and we either continue in the way which has got us nowhere near where we should be, or take a different path to reach our goal. Therefore, we either continue to do the wrong things in the hope that it will all eventually work out, or we do things differently. So I propose the following. First and foremost, we need to get rid of the present day inept, vile, and deeply dangerous Tory government. We now have no alternative but to negotiate positive, progressive alliances with other parties whose members feel the same, have concerns about addressing the environmental crisis, and also a desire for proportional representation. Now, just campaigning in the hope that we will get into power is not enough. Secondly, the time has come to revisit our policies on party funding. Our refusal to accept corporate donations is clear and principled, but puts us at a huge electoral disadvantage. When you consider that the Liberal Democrats received over 30 times more in donations than the Green Party in 2019, and the Brexit Party over 15 times more than we did, it is no wonder that we find ourselves hopelessly outgunned at election time, or that our hopes for significant gains so often fail to materialise. I therefore believe that we should unashamedly seek investment from ecologically and socially ethical companies to fund our campaigns and comprehensively targeted election strategies. In view of that, we need to devise fully integrated and coordinated plans with the input of ground-level local party information to better target our resources, keep it simple for the electorate to more easily identify with us, attract more members when we are seen to be have more elected representation, and thereby media attention. We need to achieve a level of playing field for all and address the big issue of this climate catastrophe together. That, I believe, is the way for us all to move forward to address this emergency, and from the ground up, with accountability, honesty, and compassion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. That was with just over a minute to spare. Thank you very much for allowing us to keep time. Next on the list, I've got Martin and Tina. I'm aware there's two of you. I assume you've negotiated amongst yourselves how you're going to split up your time. Brilliant, excellent. Well, I'll invite both of you to unmute, and you can whatever works best for you. You can go ahead. I will give you 5 minutes, starting now.
So thank you. Thanks so much, Ashley. Good to see you. Tonight I've written a script for the intro because although it's something I rarely do, I really wanted to be sure I got the words right as best I can. As a child in Australia and later as a teenager in Hong Kong, I watched in confusion and later anger as my mother's dearest friend and boss, Brian, a homosexual man, was forced to hide his love for his partner, Colin. In Australia, it was easier for them than it proved to be in Hong Kong, where the penalties were fierce and the determination to apply them was strong. At 17, I started work as a reporter on a Hong Kong daily newspaper. And one of the first stories I covered was the investigation into conversion therapy. And it was done in order to make homosexuals normal. It was brutal and it involved the varying degrees of shocks depending on the response to images. I was horrified. As a British colony, Hong Kong's criminal laws against homosexual acts were initially the same as the British law, with a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. But then in 1991, the Legislative Council finally agreed to decriminalise homosexual relations. I really wish that Brian and Colin had been around to see that. Because no one should have to hide their love or be scared to be their true selves. Here in the UK, I was reading up that homosexuality wasn't penalised or judged until Christianity arrived in 597 AD. And later, it was sorry, I've lost my place. Later, the Buggery Act of 1533, even more brutal, and made it illegal and punishable by death. And it wasn't until 1967 that homosexuality was finally decriminalized here in the UK. Every battle for homosexual rights was a dangerous one, and every campaigner risked so much. It's a massive credit to the gay rights movement that the hard-won campaigns on age of consent and same-sex marriage successfully changed laws to recognize these rights to be the same for all people. And finally, research in 2019 showed that 86% of the UK agreed that homosexuality should be accepted by society. We've come a long way. There's an awful lot more to do. When Martin and I decided to stand in this election, we spent a lot of time discussing policies and party issues to find out if we shared views, and thankfully, we have yet to find one we don't agree with each other on. Treating people with decency and respect and ensuring diversity is welcomed and embraced is at the core of who we are. And ensuring the Green Party of England and Wales is protected and propelled into power is why we're here. This particular hustings has weighed heavily for a multitude of reasons. The unity and our party's reputation are paramount importance in the UK, indeed the planet. Without the Greens fighting to get climate and ecological breakdown on the agenda and in the news, we wouldn't stand a chance. No other party generally cares. They play lip service for votes. We tell the truth, and the truth is what's needed now more than ever. But our unity and reputation are under threat because of disagreement between those fighting for trans rights and those fighting to protect women's rights. Tonight, I feel out of my depth and at risk of error, at risk of adding to the disunity. As many members I know feel similarly, unsure how to phrase things correctly, how to ensure others know you mean no ill will, and how to express concerns without causing further division. As we move through these hustings, the conversations will come round to the very serious matter of the trans and women's rights and where our policies impact these. It's serious because whether you are involved or not, this matter has become a focal point for the party, both internally and externally, in the media, online, and at meetings. We've lost members, seen our disputes and disciplinary processes stretched beyond their resources, and we know that members are feeling anger and hurt. And it's serious because for nearly 5 decades, members have worn down shoe rubber and bruised knuckles getting our party to where we are today. Our 450 plus councillors, 1 MP, 2 in the Lords, thousands of activists and tens of thousands of members need us to stop this from damaging our reputation beyond repair. We must face the discussions that are needed to resolve it. We can't say we'll educate the dissent away or suggest that if members aren't happy with policies, they should leave the party. The policy that trans women are women, trans
30
men
seconds,
men,
Tina.
non-binary identities are valid has caused members to question how this policy impacts the rights of women to single-sex spaces and the right to request examination by someone of the female sex. And progress can't come because even saying these words and questioning the policy has been damning to members of all views and none. There's no easy answers, but it's essential that we work to find them. Martin and I want to work for resolution, and I hope tonight we will find some way to a less troubled path. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Just a few seconds over, but I sensed that you were on your last sentence, so I didn't feel the need to prompt you. Okay, finally, we're going to come to Carla. Carla, I'm inviting you to unmute now. I can see you've unmuted. You have 5 minutes starting now.
This leadership election is important. We have a window of opportunity to grow the party bigger than ever before. Last week's poll showing us at 10% confirms that. Adrian and I are running for Green Party co-leaders to build an effective and inclusive party, to win power and influence in every corner of England and Wales, and communicate our big green ideas to transform society. But to do that, we need to tackle issues around diversity and inclusion in our party. I'm really glad to say that these hustings are happening, and I'm anticipating an important discussion ahead. I believe that we need leaders with experience of tackling these issues of discrimination, with a passion to break down barriers, and most importantly, a commitment to listen. Adrian and I have 14 years experience as councillors between us. Part of the role of councillor is reaching out to all communities in our wards. Another is supporting residents facing discrimination to get justice. Some of the most important casework I've received has been doing this. The Green Party has always led the way on LGBTIQA rights. We were one of the first parties to include gay rights in our election manifesto. We were the first party in England to back marriage equality. On a range of topics, we've been a leading light, from PrEP on the NHS to intersex rights. Adrian is an ally who is committed to working with LGBTIQA Greens and all liberation groups, and who's been honoured to be a guest speaker at Norwich Pride marches, for example. As a queer woman and an active member of LGBTIQA Greens, I'm proud to be in this party and have never been shy about standing up for our rights. I've organised the Bristol Green Party's presence at Bristol Prides for most of the last decade. I organised our councillors and local party to sign the Bristol Trans Pledge. I've been invited to speak at 2 trans rights protests in Bristol, co-proposed lots of great motions to conference. I'm part of the LGBTIQA Greens Councillor Network, which is just getting going. I helped organise and campaign for the intersectional and trans inclusive group of candidates for Green Party Women Committee election last year. And I've used my profile as a prominent LGBTIQA councillor to lobby for improved trans healthcare services in the Southwest, which actually is now bearing fruit. And maybe there'll be a question where I can tell you more about that later. But currently, the UK, we have to acknowledge, is in the grip of this bitter culture war over trans rights, where somehow debating a whole group's right to exist has become fair game, and the Green Party is sadly not immune. Everyone deserves better. Misinformation and false fears stoked often on social media are so harmful and just divide us further. At their best, our local parties are welcoming and inclusive spaces driven to deliver change. We want to make sure that every part of the Green Party looks like that. We know the issues won't be fixed overnight, but we believe that there are things we can do to make the party more welcoming and inclusive. More on that later too, hopefully. Part of it, we think, is creating spaces where people can listen, learn, engage, make mistakes and grow. Our goal is a movement free from any kind of discrimination that makes the most of everyone's talents and respects their lived experience. To build an effective and inclusive party. As leaders, we all play an active role in discussion on the party's governance, ensuring our structures and processes are fit for purpose for the current and future size and ambitions of the party. We'll work on growing and diversifying our membership through vibrant party campaigns, supporting our liberation groups and demonstrating that the Green Party is a serious electoral force. And we want to help improve party culture by centering compassion for each other and our communities. We will lead the party to win power and influence in every corner of England and Wales. This means ambitious targets on getting Greens elected. That's councillors, mayors, MPs and members of the Senedd. As leaders, we'll travel across England and Wales to support local parties to win, because we know how much leadership visits can help boost local party morale and gain media coverage. And it means a greater focus on developing the next generation of Green leaders, organisers and MPs through schemes like Campaign School, Young Greens 30 Under 30 and the DIQA Leadership Programme. And finally, as leaders, we will use our experience of performing in the media to communicate the party's big green ideas to transform society, championing a fair transition that ends poverty and homelessness, the need for ecological restoration, our world-changing policies like universal basic income and Green New Deal, and of course, we'll stand up for the rights of all oppressed people. There's no time to lose. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carla. We're going to move into the questions now. What I'm going to do is read out the first question. I will then randomize the order of participants just to give whoever's going first at least a few seconds to digest the question before we jump in. I will read the question again once I've read out the running order. So the first question that's been submitted to us is, the government has yet to implement the ban on conversion therapy that was promised in 2018 and is proposing a consultation so that it can prevent unintended consequences. Would you pressure the government to implement an immediate ban without unnecessary further consultation? The running order for this one is going to be Carla first, then Shahrar, then Martin and Tina, then Ashley, and then finally Amelia. I'll read that question out one more time. The government has yet to implement the ban on conversion therapy that was promised in 2018 and is proposing a consultation so that it can prevent unintended consequences. Would you pressure the government to implement an immediate ban without unnecessary further consultation? Okay, Carla, I believe you're still unmuted. Oh, no, you're not. Give me one moment. Hang on. I'm going to turn off your spotlight for a moment there, Carla. And now I can see the ask to unmute button on you. Brilliant. And you are now spotlighted. So you've got 2 minutes to answer here. 2 minutes is starting now.
Thank you. The fact that conversion therapy isn't already illegal in this country is frankly shocking. So yes, short answer, I would pressure the government to implement that ban. I can't really understand what the unintended consequences they're referring to are. It's clearly quite immoral to subject people to basically phony treatments to try and change their gender or sexuality, and there's no place for it in a civilized society. And I don't need the rest of my 2 minutes to make that point.
Fair enough. That was extremely speedy of you. Next up, we have got Shahrar. If you just give me a moment, Shahrar, there's a couple of people in the waiting room. I'm just going to admit them before we get started. I'm just inviting you to unmute now. And you've been spotlighted. I can see that you've unmuted. Shahrar, you've got 2 minutes to answer this question, starting now.
Well, generally speaking, I believe that more debate and consultation is a good thing. If you look at the Gender Reform Act consultation, that was quite necessary. There were a lot of campaign groups making points and wishing to have a hearing, and then that was considered in the fullness of time. Now, absolutely, if you have a commitment to ban conversion therapy, one of the things which I suspect there might be a little bit of debate about is what we mean by that. For example, nobody is proposing that a sex offender should not be entitled or required to have treatment in order to change their proclivity or propensity to offend. Is that a form of conversion therapy? That is a reasonable question to want to settle, around which, if you are drafting law that prevents conversion, essentially coercion, as has already been pointed out with respect to sexuality or maybe even gender identity, which is a noble aim and should happen, you want to make sure the law doesn't have unintended consequences by being drafted poorly or too generally. So yes, in terms of the central planks of the government's legislation, there should be no need for delay. And I think as Greens, we should be lobbying,
30 seconds,
as would I, for that to be implemented straight away. The only caveat to this is that let's make sure, and I think there should have been sufficient attention already paid to this in the draft legislation, that we do not invoke unintended consequences, as with any law. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shahrar. Slightly under the 2 minutes there. Good timekeeping as usual. Next in our running order, we've got Martin and Tina. I don't know if you're planning on splitting this. I'll ask you both to unmute here, and whichever of you is going to answer can just unmute yourselves. I can see that Martin's unmuted, so I take that to mean Martin's going to answer the question. Martin, I've just got my timer ready. I'm just going to spotlight you. You are now spotlighted. You have 2 minutes starting now.
I think we all know what type of conversion therapy is being talked about here, and it's an utterly immoral process being applied to people who have known what their sexuality is. In the case of friends of mine, very often since they were very young, before they were in secondary school, they were conscious, fully conscious of their sexuality. And it is a matter of the drafting of the legislation that would deal with any issues about unintended consequences. We know what the focus of this is intended to be. It's to ban that type of conversion therapy, as it should be banned. And I think I'm almost certain that the parliamentary drafts people will be the ones who would be able to deal with anything that might be regarded as an unintended consequence. I can keep my answer as short as Carla's. I think we're saying the same thing.
Thank you very much, Martin. Appreciate your brevity. Next in our running order is Ashley. Just give me a moment, Ashley. I've just invited you to unmute, and I've just spotlighted you. I'll just wait until I can see that you've unmuted. You're currently on mute still. There we go. You are now unmuted, Ashley.
Okay.
So you've got 2 minutes starting now.
Okay. Well, again, I'm not going to take 2 minutes over this. I'm just absolutely dumbstruck. I just cannot believe that there's a suggestion to continue with a consultation on conversion. It sounds like the Conservatives have been listening to Anne Widdecombe at the best, and at worst, you know, are just entering into something that is just totally barbaric. We're living in the dark ages, or going back to the dark ages if we take the approach that's suggested. That is why there's a need for us and our inclusivity. Because if we get this right about the transgender issue and our inclusivity, then other parties will follow. So again, I'm aghast. I just don't believe that this is possible in this day and age. So, you know, we've got to get rid of the Tories. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Again, very good with your time. Thank you very much. Amelia, you are last in the running order. I'm just asking you to unmute now. And I've spotlighted you. I can see you've unmuted. You have 2 minutes starting now.
Tamsin's not here today because they are on their honeymoon, and they would talk about the inequalities that they have faced as a gay person growing up in the 80s. These relics of a bygone era where effectively we were oppressing so many people through policy and through actions need to go. And it's not alone in the conversion therapy points. There are many other oppressive policies that need to vanish. A few years ago, even
very sorry, Amelia, I accidentally muted you there.
Even Section 28 reared its ugly head in some schools across England. But we must remember that we have two governments that we represent as the Green Party of England and Wales. Conversion therapy wasn't banned in Wales until this summer. During the Welsh Parliament elections, I put it into our manifesto that we were committed to stopping conversion therapy. This isn't about words. There have been years upon years of words. This is about action. And that is why we were supporting immediate action to stop the practice. And we even see faith groups, Welsh bishops coming out and saying that this is a practice that must end. There is the collective support there across England and Wales, but what we need is the action to stop it. The time for words is over.
30 seconds, Amelia. Sounds like you might have wrapped already, actually. Apologies about muting you there. Somebody tried to join the call, and just as I went to click to accept them, they vanished from the list, and the mute you button was right underneath.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, so that's all the candidates we've heard from there. I'm just going to take the spotlight off. So, as with before, I will read the question out for the benefit of all the candidates. I will then randomize the order, read out the randomized order, and then I'll reread the question just to give whoever's going first a little bit of time to digest the question. This one's not quite so long as the last one. It is, if elected as leader or leaders, how would you intend to represent all the liberation groups, including LGBTIQA+ Greens? Most importantly, how would you platform voices from within these groups? I'm just going to randomize the order now. We're going to have Shahrar up first, then we're going to have Carla second, then Amelia, then Martin and Tina, and we're going to have Ashley last. I'm just going to admit somebody into the room here. So Shahrar, you will be up first. I'm just going to read the question again for your benefit. If elected as leader or leaders, how would you intend to represent all the liberation groups, including LGBTIQA+ Greens? Most importantly, how would you platform voices from within these groups? Okay, Shahrar, I'm just going to invite you to unmute now. I'm just going to mute Ashley. Shahrar, I can see you've unmuted and you are now spotlighted. You have 2 minutes starting now.
Thanks, Ash. Just a minor procedural point. Maybe rotation might be a bit more equitable in terms of randomization every time, but not to worry. Liberation groups. Firstly, foremost, I stand for the equality of all. And I think it's imperative as leader of the party, where I be to honored with that role, to make that clear in one's prioritization. LGBTIQ+ Greens are an important, vital, and play a vital role as a locus for policy and for external campaigns. And as leader, I would want to serve you. But an additional important factor in serving you well is to serve all. And so there are protected characteristics, for example, not all of whom have such well-organized liberation groups as your good self. And I see it as my role, not to adjudicate as such, but just to be mindful of the fact that all those features of equality and all the anti-discrimination initiatives associated with them need to be promoted and platformed, so to speak, in terms of marketing and speaking engagements. So finally, discussions around equality aren't always easy. And one of the key planks of my campaign is a desire for us to return to a culture of mutual respect and mature debate in which people can openly disagree and discuss without falling out around some of those complexities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shahrar. Next up in our running order is Carla. Carla, I'm just going to ask you to unmute now. And I've just spotlighted you. I can see you've unmuted. Give me a moment to reset my timer. And you've got 2 minutes starting now.
Thank you. This is a really important question, I think. We very much, Adrian and I, would be adopting a listening style of leadership. So we would be consulting with liberation groups regularly to tell us what you need, how we can help, or how we can do better as leaders ourselves. And we would also be encouraging local parties to do likewise, listening to diverse members when they say that something isn't right, which unfortunately I know has happened a few times. We will, as leaders, we're effectively the party's primary spokespeople, so we will be speaking for you directly and we'll be championing your priorities and your campaigns, but we also want to raise up the voices of our liberation groups directly so that we can collaborate on addressing injustice in the UK and break the mold of a politics that isn't working for us right now. So we would also want to see, for example, more diverse representation on the spokespeople list. And by the way, this doesn't mean I'm not suggesting kicking everyone off the spokespeople list just after it's been created, but there are several vacancies on it. And so we would love to see those vacancies filled with some diverse Green Party members that can represent the party well. And in the longer term, we would like to see liberation group representation on the Green Party executive or whatever
30 seconds, Carla.
Succeeds it, depending what happens with the constitution. And we want to see better support for our liberation groups in terms of resources, training, and hopefully staff time support in due course. And to achieve that, we need to raise more funds as a party. And with Adrian's experience as the CEO of 2 national charities, he's got substantial experience in that area.
Pretty much perfectly to time. Thank you very much, Carla. Next in our running order, we've got Amelia. I'm just going to ask you to unmute there, Amelia, and I've just spotlighted you. I can see that you've unmuted. I'm going to reset my timer here, and you have 2 minutes starting now.
Thank you. We recognise that oppression is widespread with many intersections, and that as such, there may be many struggles not directly experienced by our leadership, but also by everyone in the party. We want to set up a panel that is comprised of representatives from groups facing significant marginalisation and recognise those intersects between them. However, the panel may pool their collective experiences and reach out to their communities and others to consider issues in a way which considers how we make our work fit for purpose. We realise that often people are asked to do voluntary work around education, and a commitment in our Liberation Manifesto, which you can find on our website, states that we will find ways to ensure that we are creating funding so that we can fund this work. We also want to ensure that we have an education programme to ensure that we are talking about the lived experiences of diverse voices, including LGBTIQA+ voices and Roma voices and disabled people's voices, and ensuring that we are looking at those intersects as well. Because it's by learning about people's lived experiences that we realise that our shared connection is powerful and understand the struggles that they're experiencing in their communities and in our society. I've previously worked to ensure that we have ring-fenced money for diverse candidates, including LGBTIQA+ candidates. And we want to ensure that we are working to remove the barriers as to why diverse people don't stand, including training and other opportunities. The funding needing for that we obviously need additional funding for that. And Tamsin has worked as a fundraiser for organisations, and in the last 3 years has raised 1.5 million for organisations that they've worked with.
Thank you very much, Amelia. Okay, next in our running order, we have Martin and Tina. Again, I'm just going to invite both of you to unmute, and you can either one of you unmute or both of you unmute. Okay, I can see that Tina has unmuted. I'm going to spotlight you, and I'm just going to reset my timer. Tina, you have 2 minutes starting now.
Thank you. Yeah, this is something we've talked about a lot, and you have to look, I think, first to what is a successful group within the party, and how can we best emulate that for the other groups that seem to not be doing as well as, say, the Young Greens, for instance. So Young Greens have auto-enrollment. If you fulfill the age category or you're a student and you join the party, you're automatically enrolled, made to feel welcome, and instantly receiving updates. You could opt out, of course, but it's something that I think is really important to members. I know other new members, a gay woman that I know who wasn't quite sure how to be involved in the things that mattered to her, you know, the women's groups, places for lesbians, and, you know, the LGBTIQ+. And so I think that if we had that same auto-enrollment for all of the liberation groups, so if you're a woman or a person of color or someone with disabilities, you could be auto-enrolled with an opt-out option, and therefore they would instantly be populated. And we found in the movement we created with anti-fracking that if you had elements of it, like the faith groups and the women's groups, that they would work very hard together in order to achieve their goals, because they felt safe in the company of people that understood them and would fight in the same way. And I think we kind of need that within the party. We have this big unity over the environment and demanding that we fix the environmental emergency, but what we don't have is that ability to all of us to focus on the issues that matter to these groups. And I think that we could do best by giving them the resource and the membership that could really grow those. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tina. Finally, in our running order for this question is Ashley Gunstock. Ashley, I've just invited you to unmute, and I'm just going to spotlight you now. And oh, I need to remove Tina's spotlight. There we go. Okay, Ashley, I can see that you've unmuted. I'm just going to reset my timer. And you've got 2 minutes starting now.
Okay. Well, I joined this party primarily because of its inclusivity. So as leader, I would promote minority groups at every given opportunity. And I do. I also, as a teacher, find that the pupils that I'm in classes with tend to be growing up in an age where it's common practice to embrace people of diversity. And one example I can give is that a group of year 8 children were asked to design a desk tidy in design and technology. And they asked me, well, what colours should I make it? I said, well, look, I'm not going to tell you, I'm just going to give you an example, but it's often been said that boys are blue and girls are pink. And one person said, well, maybe I'll do one with one together. And then someone sort of said, well, what about transgender and homosexuality? And then they actually started to design their own desk tidy around LGBTQI+ issues. And it was this that I feel needs to be put out there to adults. It's not the kids that need to be
30 seconds, Ashley.
That need to be educated. It's the adults. And that, as leader, I would do and encourage members who are from those minority groups to be brave and be strong and do the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. That is everyone has now answered for that question. Sticking with the style we've established, I've randomized again using random.org, but I will read the next question out. This one is a slightly longer one. In case you've not noticed, candidates, I have been posting the questions in the chat in Zoom, so you can read over them if you need to. The next question is, initiatives such as the Pride in Practice and the TIE campaign have worked hard at making primary care clinics and hospitals more accessible and have as a result increased awareness of the institutional homophobia, biphobia and transphobia that LGBTIQA+ folk can experience when faced with a visit to an NHS service. Do you agree that initiatives focused on improving safety and acceptance of LGBTIQA+ people, including the highly successful pronoun and rainbow badge schemes, are much needed? And would you consider supporting a motion that ensures that any such initiatives continue and are adequately funded? I will run through the list of names. I will then read that out one more time, and I will also post it in the chat. So the running order we have for this one is going to be Amelia first, followed by Carla, followed by Ashley, followed by Shahrar, followed finally by Martin and Tina. That question again, initiatives such as the Pride in Practice and the TIE campaign have worked hard at making primary care clinics and hospitals more accessible and have as a result increased awareness of the institutional homophobia, biphobia and transphobia that LGBTIQA+ folk can experience when faced with a visit to an NHS service. Do you agree that initiatives focused on improving safety and acceptance of LGBTIQA+ people, including the highly successful pronoun and rainbow badge schemes, are much needed? And would you consider supporting a motion that ensures any such initiatives continue and are adequately funded? Oh, that's a mouthful. Whoever wrote it did not believe in commas. I've got Amelia up first to answer this one. Tina, I can see you've raised your hand. I'm going to unmute you for a second, just so that you can...
I don't know why my video's disappeared. I can't make it.
No problem. I'll sort it out.
You.
If you try and start it now, you should be able to.
Thank you.
No problem. If that happens again, don't worry. I will make sure that you're able to enable it before you start speaking.
Thank you very much.
No problem at all. Okay, so Amelia, we're going to have you first. Tina, if you mind just muting yourself. Amelia, I'm just going to spotlight you now. And where have you gone? Amelia Womack. Yeah. People keep joining the call and it moves things on Zoom. I think I've just invited you to unmute. I can see that you've unmuted yourself. That was a good way to buy some time to think about the question for the candidates, I suppose. You've got 2 minutes starting now.
Well, I think it was an easy question to answer, and it just really shows the kind of world that we're in, of a kind of heteronormative world, where if a doctor had a photo of their family on their desk, it wouldn't be considered. If they were a straight couple, it wouldn't be considered to be a declaration of their sexuality. It would just be considered normal. And I think that as we are removing all of these barriers to ensure that we are able to celebrate people's gender and people's sexuality, that making sure that we're clear about that celebration is important. We know that in the queer community that we need allies, that there is a fundamental need to be standing out and making a declaration of support, especially in issues such as mental health and other areas where we need to be speaking out loud and proud about our support for people's sexuality and genders. Using pronouns and using and your sexuality to express your support and allyship, or even the fact that you represent the same gender and sexuality, it's really vital and important to the LGBTIQA+ community. And so, yes, I will support those things, but let's really challenge where our barriers are and challenge this kind of society that we have to ensure that we are making a more inclusive world at every opportunity. Again, this is devolved, so we need to do it in Wales too.
Sure, thank you very much, Amelia. Significantly under time. You had 30 seconds to spare there. Congratulations. Next in our running order is Carla. Carla, I've just invited you to unmute. I've just spotlighted you. I can see that you've unmuted yourself. I've reset my timer, so you've got 2 minutes starting now.
Yes, I do believe these initiatives are positive, as you can see from my Zoom name, where I've shared my preferred pronouns to normalise that behaviour in society. I very much welcome initiatives such as lanyards or badges to help raise acceptance and awareness of people with different genders and sexualities in places like healthcare and other workplaces. For example, here's my city council lanyard, and you can see that I've got a rainbow lanyard on that. I am aware that there are some people in society who don't think it's a positive thing, who consider it to be rubbing your sexuality or your sexual proclivities or whatever in the face of patients. I think that way of seeing it is utterly ridiculous and very heteronormative, because, as Amelia said, if you go to see a doctor or a nurse and they are wearing a wedding ring or have a picture of themselves and their opposite sex partner on their desk, that isn't considered to be rubbing their sexuality into anyone's faces. So just normalising the diversity of LGBTIQA people in all workplaces in a sort of a suitable, work appropriate way is totally reasonable from my point of view. Would I support a motion to ensure such initiatives continue and are adequately funded? Yes, if there's I wasn't necessarily aware that there was a risk of them not being adequately funded. So I guess whether I prioritise that motion would depend on whether that was an imminent threat. But if it is, then yes, I would definitely support it.
Brilliant. With about 5 seconds to spare, thank you very much. We're whizzing through this. It's great. Ashley Gunstock, I've got you next in the running order. I'm just going to spotlight you and, oh, I've got to find you in my list. I've just asked you to unmute there. Just reset my timer. I'll just wait for it to say that you're unmuted. I can see that you've unmuted there, Ashley. Okay, you've got 2 minutes to answer the question, starting now. Okay, again, I'll be short because in conversation regarding LGBTQIA+, I've said that health and safety is paramount. So yes, I would support such initiatives, and I think it is worthwhile for them to see some funding in order that may be accomplished. The only problem that I foresee is that
because I believe that this is a generational thing, and this generation is finding ways in which they can break down barriers and assert their identities. The older generation, and I don't include myself in that because that's not my way of thinking, tend to find it very, very difficult to cope with this. So as long as it's done with care, so that people get to understand the full picture and what it is that's being attempted to be achieved, then I see no problem with this at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Okay. Next up in the running order, we have Shahrar. I'll just spotlight you and ask you to unmute. I've spotlighted you. I can see you've unmuted. I'm just going to reset my timer here. And Shahrar, you have 2 minutes starting now.
Thanks. Can I just check? Are you happy for us to refer to other candidates' answers?
I don't see a problem with that. I will restart your timer.
Great, thanks. I liked very much the thrust of what Carla's been saying. And I do just want to develop some of the thoughts that you've already heard, which I'm broadly in agreement with. We have to start from the assumption and facts that there is a lot of prejudice around LGBTQI+ communities. And these initiatives, which are generally hosted and promoted by charitable organizations, have a lot to be said for them. I would, however, emphasize the following. Firstly, they should be voluntary for people in the workplace. And the reason I say that, and just to reference Carla, in a work appropriate way, I do think that particularly in a medical or clinical environment, there has to be some special care taken around boundaries, professional boundaries. I don't mean by that there could be any excuse not to want to wear a pride lanyard, for example. Here's mine, since people are talking about it. Here I have one here, which I wear a lot. What I do think, though, is there are some details which one might have to be careful about, and it does happen, particularly in a medical professional context. If you are talking about your own sexuality, then that may also interfere with your duty of care, where paramount consideration is the care of the patient. So that's all. That's just a simple caveat. Finally, voluntary. This has to be voluntary. In terms of the use of pronouns, which has already been referred to, I don't think that that is anything that should be made compulsory. Not everybody understands of themselves or believes or feels that they have a gender identity.
That's time, Shahrar.
Thank you.
I would have let you finish the sentence.
What, can I finish the sentence then?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's to say, I think there is a difference between respecting and even complying with the preferred pronouns of a colleague or a friend and choosing not to adopt pronouns of oneself. So I don't believe in misgendering, for example. I think that's a mistake, and there are rules.
That's a long-running sentence there, Shahrar.
Oh, yes, sure.
Sorry. Sorry, I was at a risk of giving you the better part of a minute extra there.
Yeah, beg your pardon.
It's okay, no problem. So Martin and Tina, we've got you in the last step of the running order for this. I've invited you both to unmute. I can see that Martin is unmuted. Am I take that to believe that Martin's going to answer? Yep. Okay, I will spotlight Martin. And Martin, you are unmuted. I'm just going to reset my timer here. And you have 2 minutes starting now.
The question refers to homophobia, biphobia, transphobia in medical settings. But what we're talking about is something that's much more widespread institutionally, runs across the police, runs across the civil service. We're also talking about things that affect a range of other groups against which there are institutional attitudes. The disabled, in a lot of contexts, women have been subjected to violence. So we're talking about attitudes and the need to deal with those attitudes. I was recently looking at some comments by a Canadian trans activist commenting on how few trans people were actually bringing complaints to the police, in that case, about hate crime. A, because they didn't expect to be believed. B, because of the attitudes they were experiencing from the police. And it's notable here that if you look at the last figures on hate crime, there are only 69 reports of trans-based to the police. And that's presumably no reflection of the number of incidents, but probably reflects the expectation of being believed. So what we're concerned with is with the education of people in those sectors. And education must apply not only to attitudes, not only to speech, but has been mentioned to others by the symbols that are used.
That's 30 seconds there, man.
So what we need to be doing is recognizing that hospitals and those that work in them and the primary care settings are one of a group of institutions where attitudes need to be shifted, because there is institutional prejudice, institutional racism has been referred to in the police, but institutional prejudice across a range of disadvantages and across that range of institutions.
Last sentence, please, Martin, unless that was it.
That'll be it.
Oh, perfect. Perfect timing, then. Perfect timing. Thank you very much. That's all the candidates we've now heard from on that question. I'm just going to de-spotlight you there, Martin. Our next question, and I promise the rest of the questions are nowhere near as long as that one was. The next question is, can you explain how your specific manifesto commitments will address the trans rights debate and how they will have a positive impact rather than a negative one? I'm just going to randomize the order again. Thanks to random.org. They haven't sponsored us, but they are doing good work. So we have Ashley, followed by Shahrar, followed by Martin and Tina, followed by Carla, and then finally it'll be Amelia. So I'll read that question out again, and I will also post it in the chat. Can you explain how your specific manifesto commitments will address the trans rights debate and how they will have a positive impact rather than a negative one? I'm going to go to Ashley first. Ashley, I've just invited you to unmute, and I've just spotlighted you. I'll just wait for it to say that you've unmuted. I can see that you've unmuted there, Ashley. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to answer, starting now.
Well, first of all, I've got to say that although I've been looking into the trans rights issues, I have to say that I want more information. I need to understand better. As I said before, I do get the need to break down barriers and assert identities. So what I would say as leader is that I would like to have people in the room to speak with me about this and make me better understand, not only as someone who wants to learn, but also so that I can put forward the information to people who also don't understand and need to learn. So in that room, I would like people of opposing views to be sitting with me and discussing what the situation is. And hopefully we can get to the nub of the problems that we're facing, with the thought in mind that conflicting views don't always dovetail, and that sometimes there needs to be a little bit of movement on either side. But that is what my manifesto...
30-second warning.
My manifesto would say, we still need this conversation. I need this conversation. I want to put this conversation out to the general. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Second in our running order, we have Shahrar. I'm going to invite you to unmute there, Shahrar. I'm just going to spotlight you, and Ashley, I've just muted you again. I can see that you've unmuted, Shahrar. You've got 2 minutes starting now.
Thanks, Ash. This is a really important question. Firstly, I don't have a policy manifesto. My manifesto is based on party policy. I do, however, have campaign priorities. And I would say one of those key campaign priorities, which is mature debate and women's rights, are already having a positive impact, not just on the party, but on this election. And why is that? Because this debate, sometimes trans rights are pitted against women's rights, is incredibly divisive. And Tina, in a very eloquent speech, talked about our reputation. It's actually damaging our reputation. And unfortunately, it has been for several years now. It damages our reputation for a whole series of deputy leader candidates last year, one of whom has since resigned from the party, by the way, Andrew Carrier-Fuller, not to be able to answer a straight question around what is a woman. You can qualify it if you want to, you can add to it, and you can talk about trans women as a statement of gender identity, but not being able to answer a question like that makes us look, frankly, ridiculous. And that's why we need a reality check. And there are a number of reality checks we need. First of all, we need to acknowledge, as a recent ruling, High Court ruling around services in prisons and the impact of transgender inmates upon women, they ruled that there is a conflict of sorts. It's like there's a pie. It's a rights pie. And we're always being constantly told
30 seconds, Shahrar.
That there is no conflict. How come there is a sense in which single-sex services and the rights of women to have the dignity of their own prison is being impacted? That needs negotiation. So I put it to you that I am having a positive impact on this election and the party, and to elect me would have a profound impact, because he would say very clearly that we are a political space which is mature enough to entertain robust debate and to welcome everybody to our party, because we want good policy that affects everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shahrar. Next in our running order, third, we have Martin and Tina. Once again, I'm just going to invite you both to unmute, and you can both unmute, or one of you unmute. It looks like Tina's unmuting. Tina, I am spotlighting you. I've accidentally left Shahrar spotlighted there. There we go. Okay, Tina, you are unmuted. I'm just resetting my timer, and you have 2 minutes starting now.
Thank you. We don't really have a manifesto as such. Martin and I like to describe our leadership as servant leadership, as was described in the holistic review. We're here to serve the party's members and the groups within it. So how would we help to resolve and to, explain? So we don't have a commitment to a manifesto, but what we do have is a commitment to bringing the subject to light and helping. We had to listen to Ashley at his start. He sounds like so many members I know, where the language is confusing, the issue is confusing. When Sian resigned, I had members writing and saying, I don't understand her resignation letter. What was that relating to? I think we have to accept that, you know, there is a small number of regular, continuous volunteers in this party and people engaged with the conference and doing policy. And that beyond that, people in communities where they're a councillor or a campaigner maybe aren't as up to date, and like Ashley, don't really understand what's going on. But it's not education. What it is, not from one lot or one issue or another. It's a matter of having the discussion and being the change we wish to see again by having a members forum, a members assembly, so that we invite members to discuss this, to be given the information and the facts that each wants to present, and to reach a wider consensus than the small voices.
30 seconds, Tim.
That even in this debate that I look at this Hustings, and I look at who's attending, and I want it to be a wider public, a wider number of members, but they're the names that we know, the names that are invested in this. And I think we need to, as I said, be the change we wish to see and encourage a conversation, not just stop it or cut it off. It can't, it has to happen, or else it will continue to damage us.
Absolutely perfect to the second time there, Tina. Congratulations. Next up, we have Carla to answer. Carla, I've just invited you to unmute and I've just spotlighted you. I can see you've unmuted. I'm just going to reset my timer here. And Carla, you have 2 minutes starting now.
Thank you. Our approach on trans rights has several prongs. Setting the tone and providing leadership, which means a clear line internally and externally that prejudice of all types have no place in our movement, and that equality is not like pie. Diverse groups need not be pitted against one another. And next, we want to support workshops and training led by LGBTIQA Greens, including really carefully facilitated conversations to allow people to share their lived experience and relate to each other at a human level. We've already spoken with both of the LGBTIQA Greens co-chairs about this. We know that the committee is already working on something like this, and we've also seen it work well from the Jewish Greens. We recognise that training and engagement like that isn't appropriate for those with really hardened prejudiced views, but like the Jewish Greens workshop, I envisage that it would be aimed at people who are unsure or in the middle, who perhaps don't mean to be transphobic, but have some ignorance or unexamined bias that they would benefit from talking about it with. It's about moving the dial, shifting the middle so that there are fewer people who don't think it matters or who don't spot when they or others are acting in a discriminatory way. And when I say support LGBTIQA Greens, I mean with promotion, practical support, and in the longer term, liberation groups, I think, need staff support and funding to enable them to achieve their potential. But we have to recognise that tone setting and training may not be enough on its own. So we need to properly resource our party's disciplinary committee so that everyone has confidence in the process. We want to end the long delays and look at how the process works, because at the moment it seems to be open to abuse via vexatious complaints, and that needs to be fixed.
Last sentence, Carla.
And finally, the disciplinary committee needs clear definitions to work with, and that's why I co-proposed Ash's motion someone's motion on queerphobia to the previous conference.
It wasn't my motion, but thank you very much for crediting me at motion, I suppose.
Sorry.
That's okay. Finally, we have Amelia as the last answerer for this question. Amelia, I'm just going to invite you to unmute here, and I've set you as a spotlight. I can see you've unmuted. You have 2 minutes to answer, starting now.
I talk to people across the party who want to get on and campaign for our clear policies on trans rights, but also get on and campaign on climate change, on the climate emergency, on the ecological emergency, and addressing inequalities in our society. We all have a shared vision of what kind of world we can create. And I think we need to remember that, because part of our manifesto, and I think that we're the only candidates that have manifestos on COP, on elections, and on liberation, we've put education at the heart of that. Because yes, we all have learning to do. In fact, it was a veteran activist that inspired part of this manifesto, who their support for trans rights, they said, at the age of 83, I've realized that I'm always learning. And we have to ensure that we are embedding that within our party, lifting marginalized voices and lived experiences and ensuring that people are heard. But we also need to be ensuring that we are not dividing people and we are lifting this conversation up. Because when we are divided, we are creating battle lines that mean that we're not actually targeting that big vision. We need to be making sure that we are genuinely campaigning on women's rights. I have worked to make misogyny a hate crime. I have worked to ensure that there was better investment in rape crisis centres and domestic violence centres across the country by working cross-party ahead of the pandemic, because we could see the impact of women in other countries. Because by bringing this conversation down to divisive issues, then we are not working together to ensure that we are challenging the biggest problems that are happening in these areas and challenging the way that this has been happening as well. So yes, education is key. Yes, listening to people's voices are key. Yes, we want to ensure that we are supporting the disciplinary committee, who are incredible volunteers delivering change. All of that is outlined in our manifesto and a clear and pointed plan about how we ensure that we make that change happen.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all candidates. We are blazing through this. I've got the next question laid out here. I will read it out and I will then randomize the order and I'll read the question out again, just to give a little bit of thinking time for everybody. So the question is, we've seen past leaders make gaffes when it comes to equalities issues, but ours is a party that focuses on fixing the mistakes of the past. What mistakes, if any, have you made while speaking on equalities issues, and how have you sought to resolve any harm or misunderstanding caused? I'm going to randomize the order now. Okay, I've got Shahrar first, then Carla, then Martin and Tina, then Amelia, and then Ashley. I'm going to paste the question in the chat and I will read it out one more time. The question is, we've seen past leaders make gaffes when it comes to equalities issues, but ours is a party that focuses on fixing the mistakes of the past. What mistakes, if any, have you made while speaking on equalities issues, and how have you sought to resolve any harm or misunderstanding caused? Okay, so we've got Shahrar up first. I'm inviting you to unmute and I'm spotlighting you. I'm just going to wait. Oh, I can see that you've unmuted there. I'll reset my timer now. Okay, so Shahrar, you have 2 minutes starting now.
Ash, I just wanted to make a procedural point because I'm sure other people are noticing this. This is the 5th round of questions, and we had opening introductions. Out of those 6 rounds, I've now been first 3 times and second twice. I put it to you in terms of, you know, preparing questions and giving you good answers, which is what I want to be able to do. That isn't actually very equitable.
That's absolutely fine, Shahrar. I appreciate that. I'm at the whim of random.org, but I respect that, and I'm quite happy to put you last in the running order if that suits you for this one. In which case the running order would be revised to Carla, then Martin and Tina, then Amelia, then Ashley, then you. Would that be reasonable to you?
Yes, it would. Thanks.
No problem at all. No problem. Okay, give me a moment just to reconfigure. Carla, I'm inviting you to unmute. And I'm just spotlighting you now. And Shahrar, you are muted. Okay, Carla, you have 2 minutes to answer, starting now.
Thank you. I think this is a really good question because how people acknowledge and learn from their mistakes tells you a lot. When Adrian and I launched this campaign, there was some wording on the platform page of our website regarding trans rights that could have been clearer, and we received feedback about it from a couple of trans and non-binary members. So we sought further broad feedback from a range of other trans and non-binary members, and we have now updated that text. And since then, actually, Adrian received some really positive and kind feedback after one of the hustings, saying that his responses were a real testament to the work that he'd done in proactively reaching out to trans and non-binary folk to get that input and take it on board, which was lovely to hear. Adrian and I are aware, though, of our privilege. We're both cis, white, able-bodied, middle-class people. We undoubtedly still have prejudice that we haven't dealt with yet, and we will make mistakes. We're human. We have much to learn, and we're open to doing that learning. This week, on the recommendation of a member on Twitter, I've started reading Sean Fay's The Transgender Issue, and that is, you know, I thought I already knew a lot about trans issues, and I think I do. Got a bunch of trans and non-binary friends, but nevertheless, reading this book is a really helpful way for me to understand in more depth these issues. We, as I said earlier, will be a listening leadership team. We will consult with liberation groups regularly so that you can tell us what you need, how we can help, and if necessary, how we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Next in my list, I've got Martin and Tina. As per usual, I'll just invite both of you to unmute. And it looks like, is it Martin answering here? Looks to be. Yep. Okay. Martin, I've replaced you in the spotlight. You are unmuted. I'm just going to reset my timer, and you have 2 minutes starting now.
In a long political career, I've done an awful lot of hustings, well over 100. So I've been trying to cast my mind back over those for incidents that might count. I was told off in one of the first counts I did back in the 80s, which was actually in the count itself, because a ballot paper and someone had scrawled Combat 18 across it. And I said I'd accept it as a Tory vote, and I got told off for that. I'm not really sure that's an equality issue, though. The one I could pick up on, perhaps, is that I did hustings in a synagogue, a non-reformed one, and it was difficult. It was challenging, and they didn't ask the question about Palestine, which would have been perhaps the most difficult one, but there's one about circumcision. And I took what I saw as a human rights one that fitted in with my views on FGM, but it was clearly one that had, as I picked up straight away, was causing a great deal of antagonism within that group. It was because it was an issue that I hadn't looked at from the point of view of religious belief myself, and that to take the line I did in an Orthodox synagogue was perhaps not appropriate. But they were very kind to me as well about that. But most recently, what I've taken most on board is in relation to disability. I've been reading the book War on the Disabled by Alan Clifford, and it has made me think in much greater depth about that area of inequality, about the language that I use, about the thoughts that I have, and about my perception of the barriers that are faced by people with impairments. And so, please, Martin. So at the moment, my thinking is undergoing a great deal in relation to that particular area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. Next in the running order, we have Amelia. Amelia, I'm just inviting you to unmute now. I've spotlighted you and I can see that you've unmuted. Just reset my timer here. Amelia, you have 2 minutes to answer, starting now.
So with 7 years experience as deputy leader, I've worked on communications and discussing complex issues in the press and media. And over that time, I feel like it's been incredible to have that space to learn about how to communicate these complex issues in an effective way that means that we are not creating errors. But as I said with that story about our education programme, I am obviously still always learning. And as other candidates have said, read around a lot of books on liberation, as Tamsin does. If you've seen them at another hustings, you'll have known that they can quote diverse campaigners from around the world at a drop of a hat as a result of the inspiration of that learning. But I did make an error many years ago. I believe back in about 2016, when, as I said, always learning on trans rights. And in a speech to conference, I said that I wanted to work to support women of all genders and none. So it was a speech in support of trans women, and the women with no gender are obviously non-binary, and so worked with the LGBTIQA Greens to talk about how sloppy wording can marginalise people. And it's really as a result of that experience that I've worked to ensure that sloppy wording isn't part of the work that I do. And I feel very proud to have had that 7 years worth of work to ensure that I've tightened up how I talk about these issues.
Thank you very much, Amelia. Slightly under time there. Next in our running order, we have Ashley. I've just invited you to unmute there, Ashley, and I've set you in the spotlight. I can see that you've unmuted there. My timer is reset. You've got 2 minutes starting now.
Okay, well, during my time locally, especially in hustings, I've made mistakes, but thankfully I've learned from them and moved on. But the biggest gaffe that I probably made was during the Green Party leader election campaign, this one. And I found that what I needed to do was not just apologise, but see what reparation I could make. And I did seek advice, or was offered advice, which I took. And I'm glad that I did, because that has helped me immensely and will make me move on and not make those kind of mistakes again. Yes, I will, and believe me, it is unintentional. I will misgender people because I haven't got a grip on that just yet. But my intentions are honourable, and I will do my best not to make those kinds of mistakes again. So just bear with me, and I will get it right. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Ashley. Finally, we're coming to Shahrar. Shahrar, I'm just asking you to unmute now. And I've just given you the spotlight. I can see that you've unmuted. Just going to reset my timer here. And you've got 2 minutes starting now.
Thanks, Ash, and thanks very much for giving me a bit of extra time. It's really appreciated. I think there's quite a lot behind this question, but let me just say first off, I like to think deeply and clearly about things, and that includes Green Party policy. Here are a couple of books that I've written, which sold very well during my time, 2010 and 2015. And I think it's important, what's behind the question, is that you can rely on your primary spokesperson, if it's me, to be able to speak with confidence and competency on a whole range of issues and spontaneously, and to not just survive, because we put it in this negative way. I want a hard interviewer, actually, or a hostile so-called interviewer, because I think that helps us to bring out what the Green Party really stands for. So I think you'll find, and I think this is demonstrable because apparently people have to go back to 2009 to a vetted Green Party speech on Israel, Palestine, before they can find an iota of something that they can complain about, which was dismissed when it did become a complaint. This is a speech I made in 2009, and also was cause for a publication to have to make a retraction. So I think that actually demonstrates quite a good track record, but it's not because I'm infallibilist, it's because I am fallibilist. And I have made mistakes in the party, most of which have been private. And I've gone to those people and I've apologized to them sometimes, and I've
30 seconds
in person. But in terms of public mistakes, no, I don't think I'm capable of making a gaffe such as Jonathan made about halal meat. And he didn't just make it once, he made it twice. And I think that's the most important thing here. When we make a mistake, let's not dig in and entrench ourselves. Let's actually understand and reflect immediately on why we made that mistake. Finally, Jonathan did apologize, but I'm afraid a little bit too late. So I like to learn from the mistakes of others. And I think that's probably why I hope I will have a good track record.
Thank you very much for that, Shahrar. We've made pretty reasonable time, I think, so far. We've got one more question to go. I shall read it out now, and then I'll randomize the order. The question is, what are your views on the campaign to demonize Stonewall, Europe's largest and most successful organization campaigning for the rights of LGBT+ people? I'm just going to randomize the order now. Shahrar, the universe likes you and has heeded your call. We've got Ashley, then Amelia, then Martin and Tina, then Carla, then Shahrar. So I'll read that out one more time and then I'll post it in the chat. What are your views on the campaign to demonize Stonewall, Europe's largest and most successful organization campaigning for the rights of LGBT+ people? I'm going to come to Ashley Gunstock first. Ashley, I'm going to replace you in the spotlight here. You're already
I'm muted. Hello?
We can hear you, don't worry.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yep, you got 2 minutes starting now.
Yeah. Well, I remember Stonewall coming to fruition in the 80s. And again, the intentions were honourable and they wanted to bring information out into the general domain in order that people could be, informed about what was going on. And if we hark back to the last question, mistakes, if what they put out was a mistake, and I don't think they intentionally wanted to incite people at all, then, you know, if they're sorry for that mistake and want to move on, then I don't think that they should be demonized, just as anybody who makes a mistake should not be demonized. I think everybody deserves a second chance. And that's the way I view this issue as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Next up, we have Amelia. Amelia, I'm just inviting you to unmute and popping you in the spotlight. I can see that you've unmuted. Amelia, you've got 2 minutes starting now.
In my opening speech, I referenced that we stand on the shoulders of giants when it comes to the LGBTIQA rights. And let's remember, we've got 50 years of history of Stonewall that has worked to ensure that we begin to stop the oppression of LGBT people. We're not there yet, as this Hustings has proven. We have to remember that Stonewall was intersectional. It was about Black power. It was about feminism. It's about trans rights. It was about LGBTIQA plus rights. It's about making the change to ensure that everyone was accepted on that intersectional basis. I think it's important that we support Stonewall and continue to support Stonewall. And I understand that some people have frustrations that we rightly use Stonewall in our HR processes to ensure that we are accessible and are ensuring that we have the right rights for LGBTIQA plus people, and will continue to ensure that that's the case if I'm elected.
Thank you very much, Amelia. We're going to come now to Martin and Tina. Once again, I'll just invite you both to unmute and see who unmutes. Looks like it's Tina. Tina, I've given you the spotlight. You are unmuted. You have 2 minutes starting now.
I was reading up on the issues surrounding Stonewall because I'm not overly clear, like many members. I haven't been following all of this. I've been rather absorbed for the last 10 years in anti-fracking. And I read some concerns being expressed by various government departments and others about some of the laws that were portrayed as being not actually clearly defined or representing what the true laws were. And I don't know enough about this, but what I do know is that no institution is beyond question, and that we should do our own quick checks of these people. If it's what we have and what we're paying for is for them to audit us and make sure that we're abiding by the laws, let's be sure that we have got the ability to check them from time to time. I would also love to see within our own party, again, being the change we wish to see, is that we should have established such clear guidelines for our HR department and for the party that we don't have prejudices. We don't allow those prejudices to slip in to our employment processes or the way that we treat our members. So no, I think that everything's up for discussion and nothing is beyond reproach. And if it's worth looking at, and people have raised concerns in various government departments, and I think police and crime commissioners and others, then yeah, we absolutely need to look into that and make sure we're still on the right road.
30 seconds, Tina.
I'm done.
I don't know if that, oh, fair enough. Time to spare, no problem. Okay, next up in the running order, we have Carla. Carla, I just invited you to unmute there. And I've set you in the spotlight. I can see that you've unmuted. Carla, you have 2 minutes starting now.
The campaign to demonise Stonewall is embarrassing. In case folks are unaware, Stonewall is the country's leading LGBT plus charity and campaigning organisation. And 2 years ago, one lobby group in particular called the LGB Alliance was formed in opposition to Stonewall's policies on transgender issues. Behind the LGB Alliance's innocuous sounding name, they peddle outright transphobia. The absence of the T in their name is the point. It's worth saying that that is, as far as seems to be possible to tell from the public domain, the sole reason they were set up, which in my mind is what makes them a hate group rather than simply a gay rights organisation that I happen to disagree with on a particular issue. They were set up specifically to campaign against changes to the Gender Recognition Act and the rights of trans people generally. And shockingly, since then, the LGB Alliance has even made comments in support, or at least not in opposition to conversion therapy, and has said that it's not homophobic to oppose same-sex marriage. So I'm not even sure that they're not homophobic too. So yes, as Tina says, of course, no organisation is beyond scrutiny. And if we as a party or the LGBTIQA+ movement felt that Stonewall had made a misstep, an error of judgment at some point, then of course we should raise that with them. But I don't think that's what's happened here. This is an organised campaign to fight against the rights of members of our LGBTIQA+ community.
Thank you very much, Carla. 15 seconds under time. Finally, for the running order for this question, we have Shahrar. Shahrar, I've invited you to unmute. I've popped you in the spotlight. I can see that you've unmuted, and you have 2 minutes starting now.
Thanks, Ash. Well, I just do love these meaty questions. So first of all, on an answer in the last round where I was talking about making mistakes, I may have mistakenly said that I'm not fallible when I meant I'm not infallible. I'd be interesting to check that through later. In terms of Stonewall, there's something quite revealing in the question. Demonize Stonewall. Well, that actually seems to assume that this organization, which has done great work in the past, can do no wrong. And I would want to challenge that. And I have indeed proposed and drafted a motion to conference asking and seeking that the Green Party disaffiliate from Stonewall. But that's because I take myself and others who are scrutinizing Stonewall to be objective. I think it's objectively the case that Stonewall has been misrepresenting the Equalities Act, and they've been conflating gender reassignment, for example, with gender identity. I think that's a mistake. I think that constitutes poor advice, which the Green Party should not be paying £2,500 a year into the 6th year. That's £15,000. That money would be better put into campaigns for the party. I have to comment on something that Carla said about the LGB Alliance. They are a registered charity. You may not agree with their aims, but we should look at them in the round and look at why the main reason that they were brought up, that they came into existence, was precisely because they felt lesbian and gay community were being ill-served by Stonewall, for example. And I think that it is worth exploring and investigating and listening. We've heard a lot about that this evening. Why gay people themselves are feeling that their needs and their interests are not being properly regarded because of trans rights, in their minds, pushing aside their interests and forcing or compelling them to review their own identity as same-sex attracted people. So yes, let's scrutinize, do our own due diligence.
Last sentence.
And look at the reputational damage that will be done to us when other organizations, in my view, are rightly disaffiliating from Stonewall. Not because they're against their well-founded aims in the past, but they do not want to misrepresent the Equalities Act.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much to everybody. I appreciate this has been, as Shahrar put it, a fairly meaty or perhaps jackfruity hustings. I've scheduled space here. We've got about 3 minutes left for each candidate just to give closing remarks. So no question here, just whatever the candidates want to say. I'm just going to go to the list randomizer. We've got Carla, then Martin and Tina, then Shahrar, then Ashley, then Amelia. So Carla, I'm just inviting you to unmute now, and I'm setting you in the spotlight. And I can see that you've unmuted. Carla, you've got 3 minutes for closing remarks, starting now.
Thank you for all the brilliant questions and to everyone behind organising this event. This evening, you've heard from each of the candidates about their values, their skills, and their ambitions. You've heard about some of the problems in our party, and from some candidates, you've heard about their intentions to solve them. Adrian and I are ready to bring our 33 years of political experience to leadership now. Our track record of winning elections as Green councillors and our history of delivering in the media. As deputy leader and leader of the councillor group in Norwich, Adrian was part of the team that got Caroline Lucas elected. He also co-wrote our Target to Win electoral strategy and helped build the party structures that have more than trebled our councillors in the last decade. He's served as the CEO of 2 national environmental charities and has valuable experience in fundraising. The unique set of experience and expertise he offers can deliver a step change in how our party operates and wins elections. I also bring experience as a councillor, part of what's now the largest Green councillor group in the country in Bristol. I proposed the first climate emergency declaration in Europe, inspiring hundreds of organisations to follow my lead. And my council work has helped prevent homelessness and protected the poorest households in the UK in Bristol from unaffordable council tax rises. I've campaigned alongside unions and grassroots organisations for renters and workers' rights, for safe housing for domestic violence survivors, and for better trans healthcare in my region. And I'm the Green Party's candidate for Bristol West, our best shot at getting our next MP. As the only candidates in this election with experience as Green Party elected representatives, Adrian and I don't just bring the ability to win elections, though. Being a local councillor means having to talk to and work with people from all sections of society, not just those we agree with. There's a lot of people out there who see the world differently. To get the power to implement our brilliant ideas, we need to bring those people with us, which means understanding their priorities and being able to communicate with them in their language. As Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. When you're asking people to vote for change, especially radical change, that takes a lot of trust. People need to see that we're authentic and that we can address all of the issues they're concerned about. The other political parties are failing on the issues that matter. There is political space for the Green Party to grow exponentially. We need the right leadership to capitalise on that. Please vote Carla and Adrian with your first preference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carla. Yeah, 3 seconds to go, so pretty good on the timings there. Martin and Tina, I'm going to invite you both to unmute. I don't know if you're both planning on speaking. I can spotlight you both if you'd like. Feel free to just say something to confirm whether you want to both have a spotlight or whether just Martin. Just Martin. Okay, no problem. Give me 1 second. Martin, there we go. You are now in the spotlight. You are unmuted. Timer is reset. You have 3 minutes starting now.
Yeah, perhaps mistakenly, we haven't made a great deal out of our experience. For example, my 12 years as a councillor in the ruling group, I'm the second biggest councillor in the country, with all of that contact and everything else that's implied, or Tina's successful 10-year campaign against fracking at Preston New Road. But I want to concentrate actually on what we've been talking about tonight much more closely. The theme of our leadership campaign is to do with party unity. And with those things that appear to affect party unity, because we need that unity, so we're concentrating on what are the overarching issues for the Green Party, those green issues, above all, the climate emergency. Even tonight, there's been a sort of inequality. We've talked much more about the trans issues than the other issues affecting the various subgroups within this particular group. And I suppose, like any group, like the Green Party itself, every group needs to be examining its own, ensuring that it's covering all of the people who are concerned with the interests of that group. I'm not sure, I'm not a member of LGBTIQA Greens, but I know that there are some dissatisfactions about the balance with which issues are covered within the group. To come to what Tina introduced, which is to do with what is a very divisive issue in the party, to do with gender identity. And to make it clear that what we're proposing is a members' assembly, rather like the one that Ireland had to deal with abortion, that brought people, ordinary people, and only ordinary people, not those from particular groups, to be informed, to discuss, to go over the issues, and to deal with the implications of it. Because the straightforward statement in our policy that trans men are men, trans women are women, has implications. It raises questions. And what we need is to have those implications discussed so that as a party, we can take a view on access to, just to mention the ones raised by the Human Rights Commission, issues such as single-sex spaces, women's participation, trans participation in women's sports. Those are complex issues that
30
do
seconds
need to be explored. Just want to touch on two little things at the end that have come up. One is the mentioning of staffing and funding for liberation groups. First of all, we need staffing and funding for our governance organisations, for the disciplinary committee, for GPRC, and dare I say it, for SOC as well. They don't have that support either, and they are essential for the way the party runs. And one little one, just lastly, on Stonewall, Ofcom has a funding limit of £5,000. And because this was 2,500, it didn't have to go outside that group for discussion. And as Shahrar mentioned, it's now grown to 15,000. We need to be discussing it. We need to be discussing it as a procedural issue within the party as much as an issue in itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Next in our running order, we have Shahrar. Shahrar, I'm inviting you to unmute, and I've replaced you in the spotlight. Just muting Martin. I can see that you've unmuted there, Shahrar. I'm just going to reset my timer. Shahrar, you have 3 minutes starting now.
Firstly, thank you for your exemplary chairing, Ash, and for organising this event, LGBTIQ+ Greens. Members and non-members listening in, and I would actually like to increase our appeal and the number of non-members listening to us. We must reach beyond our comfort zone. And I am the candidate who can do that as leader of the Green Party. And here's why. So there has been a lot of discussion throughout all the hustings around the importance and value of free speech. This is integral, not just to politics and democratic politics, but to how political parties operate. Because unless we have and embrace a diversity of ideas and opinion in our own party, guess what? A, we will be excluding people from our party, as we have already been excluding women from our party. They have been leaving and now they are joining. Secondly, we will be able to hone our arguments and our positions because we will be better represented within and better able to represent the public outside. We won't be insular. And in so doing, we will broaden our appeal to all those outside through platforms, which apparently we shouldn't be speaking on because they don't agree with us. Guess what? Turn that around. It's because they don't agree with us. It's because we have confidence in our arguments that we should be speaking with them and engaging with them, because guess what? They will, once they listen to us, just as when we have elected councillors and they like what they see and they want more, they will want to join us and vote for us. As deputy leader in 2014 to 2016, I was part of the election campaign that I'm proud of, where we got 1 million votes plus, 123 deposits saved up and down the country. Since then, we've had the failed 2017 progressive alliances, which I was against, and we've had the failed Unite to Remain pacts in 2019. We are failing ourselves. We lack confidence. The public, future generations who aren't around yet, who can't grab us by the collars and say, what are you doing for us to save our environment? You've got all the facts. We need a reality check. We need to bring this back home. We need to be confident, assertive in our policy and in our politics. And foremost, we must embrace diversity of opinion. We are becoming, unfortunately, we are becoming an authoritarian party where you're not allowed to think or speak freely or even explore opinions in order to get the right opinions. If we carry on that way, we won't have a party worth promoting. Final sentence. It's no good us thinking you can put people in a box and throw away the key. I want a party back to how it was when I joined nearly 20 years ago, a university of ideas, because we're more than a university. We are a political party that wants to shape society,
to wrap up.
Politics, and social transformation is required because we have to change what's politically possible to do what's scientifically necessary.
Shahrar. Thank you. Next up, we have Ashley Gunstock. Ashley, I'm inviting you to unmute, and I am popping you in the spotlight. Thank you very much, Shahrar. Shahraz's muted himself. Ashley, you are unmuted. I'm resetting the timer. Ashley, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, well, thank you, Ashley, and the group for hosting us. Just like to say that having been a member, an active member of the Green Party longer than many of you have tuned in and been alive, my standing for leader is actually me wishing to facilitate a handover to you. For better or worse, this is your world now. Yes, we are having problems with the trans issue, but don't be too hard on those who don't yet understand. And I'm sure that given time, we will all get it right. However, worse still is that unfortunately, our generation has done very little but monitor our civilization's impending doom. So I would ask you to encourage the party to follow the path to, again, I say, forge the progressive alliances which we've only dabbled with, that we must have to get rid of the Tory government that we are enduring, more than enduring at this present time. And we've got to negotiate PR so that the voting system is much fairer and that we actually get the representation that we deserve. We need to seek ecologically and socially ethical investment and better target our resources to address the climate emergency from the ground up. You are the future, as I once was. So, as leader, I think that you really do need to get a grip on this situation. And you are the ones that this future is for. So what I would say to you is, please make sure that we get it right now so that you are doing the work, not just for yourselves, but for future generations. And let's do it together from the ground up, with compassion, with honesty, and with sincerity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Impeccably timed. You had 4 seconds to go. Sorry, 34 seconds to go. Brad, say something. Amelia, you are last up in our running order. I'm going to replace you in the spotlight and invite you to unmute. I can see that you've unmuted. I'm just resetting my timer now. Amelia, you have 3 minutes starting now.
This is an exciting time in our party. As your deputy leader, I have worked alongside you in your communities, on your doorsteps, making sure that I'm listening to the issues that are important to you and feeding them up to a leadership level. During my 7 years of deputy leader and as the longest person on the leadership team, I have been here for our biggest surge in members in our party's history, our most votes in a general election, the increase in councillors that have been as a result of ensuring that we're prioritising and supporting our aims to build our local candidates, our local councillors towards getting more MPs elected. Tamsin and I are the only candidates that have put forward a strategy behind our words. Politics is more than about hot air and warm words. It's about taking action. And before we came together, we ensured that we had that strategy to get more Greens elected, because that needs to be the basis of how the next Green Party leader works. We have both been climate leaders. We have both been there changing the narrative in the press and media, in the toughest interviews that you can take on. We've seen Tamsin do work at building movements, and that's what we need as the Green Party. We need to be a movement. We need to be inspiring more people to be on more doorsteps across the country, because that is how we'll win. We also aren't naive to the problems that we need to be tackling within our leadership, which is why we've put forward, on top of our elections manifesto, we've put forward our liberation manifesto, which you can see both online. But we also know that this is the moment for the Green Party. We know with the IPCC report, and we know with COP coming up, that this is the time that we need to ensure that we are pushing ourselves to be one of the biggest parties in the country, ensuring that we create this moment to ensure success in those council elections and success in those parliamentary elections. We have the strategy. Check it out. We have the track record of delivering change for liberation, for climate, for ensuring that we are talking about some of the big issues of our time. So vote for me and Tamsin, first preference. Because what we need now is inspirational green leadership that won't just take the party to the next level, but will ensure that we are making the climate and ecological emergencies while addressing inequality, the biggest issues of our time. And we need leaders that have a clear commitment to winning those.
Thank you very much, Amelia. And thank you very much to all of the candidates for giving up your evenings. I appreciate that. It's an exhausting effort, especially with the amount of hustings that you've all been to. I hope you all can relax a little for the rest of the campaign. I don't want to pull up the hustings timetable, but I don't know if there are any left. If there aren't many. 2 left, says Martin. Well, I hope they go smoothly, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your campaign. And thank you all for coming here and offering us your time. We all appreciate it a great deal. The recording for this will be made available on the LGBTIQA+ YouTube account. We also plan on breaking it down question by question into little roughly 10-minute videos that will go on Twitter, just for those people that struggle to sit through a 2-hour-long video, which this will be. So yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone. If we were in a room, I'd encourage a round of applause. So you'll have to imagine one. But yes, thank you very much to all of you. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm gonna turn the recording off in a second.
Thank you so much, Ash. That was so well chaired and just really great event. So thank you. And thank you to everyone for attending as well.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah,